It's an
Yeah.
awful shot movie, but it was a good movie.
We can still keep talking about sparkly vampires. It's fine. I'm just going to turn the recording on.
Just don't say anything else. Just leave it at that.
Right. All right. But I would say it's a decent movie for sure. Like many in my family really enjoyed it. So decent movie. All right. So welcome everybody. Happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully you're having a decent week. All right. So I guess quick update on my side. So I told many of you I'm working on a proposal I'm going to be submitting to a larger tech company. I meet with them again next week. I guess I don't have to be cryptic. So I'm meeting with LinkedIn next week. My goal with meeting with them is to be able to leverage LinkedIn resources to really, really blow up Mentor Mesh and the Accelerator. A lot of what I think we're doing with the right backing could be incredibly impactful, for most people's careers, because I feel like there's such a gap when it comes to just the fact that most people they handle career progression alone by themselves, and they're out there trying to figure it out by themselves, and you can't find straight answers from anyone because nobody wants to tell you anything because they treat everything like it's a company secret. Nobody talks about comp. Nobody compares levels. Nobody understands that a director at one company is not the same as a director at another company. It's very, very different. And, whether this was on purpose or not, a lot of information around career progression feels gated. Why don't more people have access to understand what it means and how to promote? So much of a lot of that I think has to do with just there's a layer of there's a human element to all of this. And from what I've seen just in my career progression and just talking with a lot of people, we want to make career progression feel like math, but it's just not. It should be you gain these 3 things, now you will be promoted. But there's so many other factors, including company culture, your boss, that will interfere with that. I've known many people that were rock stars, but because their company was fast-paced, high-growth company, they had 7 managers in 3 years. How does a person like that get promoted if their management chain continues to change? I know a handful of people that's happened to. And so what do? You kind of have to start over, right? And so there's factors like that come in. And I think part of the issue, it's funny because I was talking to my daughter about this too in general, when it comes to loyalty. We all want to be loyal. We really, really do. We want to be behind our company mission. We want to believe in it. We also want to believe that our company is going to do what's best for us. But I think the reality is that, it's a business. As much as we want to be loyal to these people, because we're a part of their organization, we dump so much of our life and our passion and our enthusiasm to them. It's still a business, and right or wrong, they're going to do what they think is best for the business. And some of the things that they do sometimes don't feel right. You always have to do what's best for you, aggressively pursue growth. These companies will try to take care of you, of course, but as long as it's in their interest, right? And having good employees, loyal employees, is in their best interest. So it's not like companies don't try. Many of them will try. But at the end of the day, they will always do what's best for them. And this world that we live in, it's volatile. And even now, right? Like the world is in a very sensitive state again. And will that have economic impacts? Of course it will. Already the price of gas is like doubled. And how is that going to impact all these other industries that require driving and gas in order to function? Like it's going to have economic impacts. So this nice, calm 20, 30-year journey in some companies, I'm sorry, those days are over. So, but the good news is, there's so much opportunity. They are begging for good talent. They are begging to find you. They are begging. And because they know it, they do know it, whether they like it or not. We are their most valuable resource. And it can take one person can make or break a company. One person with great motivation, great ideas, a proactive attitude can absolutely transform a company. And every company that I've been in, there's been a pocket of those people, and people know who they are, right? Like they are company leaders, and you know who they are. When they do things, it has dramatic impact across the company. That was true at almost every company I've been a part of. You knew who they were. They were trailblazers, right? And you know what's interesting about that? Because I have this thing when it comes to like degrees, right? I don't see a correlation with those people and like higher education. I just haven't seen the correlation. It'd be different if I saw that. If everybody that was like killing it at the companies had a PhD, I would probably start thinking, wow, maybe that means something. But I got to tell you, like, I feel like go-getters, people that are out there doing the work, they may pursue a PhD, but it's them that's successful. It's not the PhD that makes them successful. They just chose to go that route and get a PhD. Good for them. But it wasn't that credential that made them successful. Their persistence, right? Their consistency, their passion, that's what made them successful. It just also pushed them towards pursuing higher education. It's not like you can take somebody with no grit, no persistence, they get a PhD and all of a sudden they're just Elon Musk. Like that's not, I don't think that the relationship is like that, right? So when I look at who's actually leading a lot of these companies, it's just not correlated with that. A matter of fact, I think what I've seen more, and I think this is where sometimes I have a lot more of opinion, is that sometimes, and this is not everyone, of course, when people get certain credentials, it goes straight to their head. And they start walking into rooms thinking they are entitled because they are the smartest person because they've achieved this credential. And then, so you end up working with a lot of, and this does happen in tech, with people that just have, their egos are just way bigger. And when your ego is bigger and you think you're the smartest person in the room, you don't listen to people, you're not empathetic, right? Now, does having a degree make you that way? Of course not. But for some people, to me, it's like anything that elevates you above other people, you just got to be careful with, right? Like make sure that you're getting the skill and the value out of doing those things, and you're not using it to put a chip on your shoulder. Because people like that, you got to remember, like tech is a team sport, right? It's a team sport. Give me. I don't know how to mute people.
You co-host me, Jay?
Yes. How do I? Okay. I'm about to mute you instead of giving you co-host. Anyway, so a lot of what I think about as far as what's important when it comes to what you should pursue. Because remember, even from a product management mindset, right? Think about the outcomes that you want to achieve. That's it, right? What I think about is career growth. How do you define career growth, right? That's gaining skill. Maybe it's tied to monetary gain. Maybe it's tied to experiences that you have, but what does career growth look like? And I don't feel like it is necessarily getting one job or getting another. There's a lot of factors when it comes to what career growth looks like, and how do we incentivize the right behaviors that contribute to that growth? Which is why, to me, fundamentally, things like mentorship should be at the center of this, right? The community and mentorship portion of this is paramount, especially within fast-growing tech companies. If I want to know, like, for instance, if you are in the gaming industry, the metaverse conversations that are happening, how do you understand real-time cloud gaming, metaverse stuff? How do you know how to build the best and most bleeding edge software systems in that area? You cannot pick up a book because they haven't been written yet. That takes too much time. The way you get that knowledge is to go do it, right? You got to go do it. And hopefully you're at a company that has the funding and the enthusiasm to go do it, which is why those types of people are so highly sought after, because they are doing stuff that's not written. They're doing stuff that you cannot learn in a book. However, their company has already funded maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to go invest in this. And so they're out there doing it. If you're Microsoft Xbox, they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into SaaS cloud gaming. That Google has also invested hundreds of millions of dollars into SaaS cloud gaming. So has NVIDIA. They're naturally going to innovate in that area faster simply because they have put the investment in and are in a position to do that. They will understand that space better than anyone else. And I feel a lot of tech is like that. Well, how do you get that knowledge? You need to know those people, right? If you can build a community that includes people like that, and you can build a relationship with people like that, now you can have information that most of the world will not have, because they'll talk about what they're dealing with, some of the ups and downs, the issues with scalability that they're dealing with that nobody solved, right? Like they're in the middle of solving it. But if we had community of people in many of these companies, and we incentivized sharing and mentoring, and essentially gave people credit for doing that, because that's part of the problem. If I, go and have one-on-ones with 100 people, and I share all this stuff with them, and they go out there and they do amazing things, right? On the surface, how does that help my career? There's really nothing I can put on my resume aside from saying I mentored a bunch of people. So for a lot of people, they don't naturally want to do that. So how can we incentivize them to go do it? It's not because they're not good people. Of course, they would help if they can, but everybody has to stack rank what's most important in their life, right? And when you think about your family and your income and things that you're trying to do, are you going to prioritize those things? It's harder to do that because you've got other things you could do. But if we can draw a correlation to your career, there'd be so much benefit there. Not only if we could incentivize you to do it and it had a tangible benefit for your career, you do it more, but the industry would benefit, because that knowledge is not stuff that you can read necessarily in books. So a lot of that, if you think about mentorship and community and what that does, mentorship and community turns into sponsorship. It turns into giving people job opportunities that don't exist. There are so many things that come from that. And even when you're on the job, you have people you can lean on. I need to write a proposal and I can talk to you, which I did. I talked to many of you, right? And I'm like, hey, do you guys want to contribute? And Colleen wrote some stuff up and Netta had some great ideas. And these are what's cool about that is you don't need to be, it's not about level, right? Like I might be farther along in my career than some of you, but I can absolutely learn from all of you. Just me saying something and everybody just from their own perspective, giving an opinion can help trigger ideas that ultimately lead to better product ideas. That is the way this works, because I'm not building a product for me. Whatever product anyone builds, it's going to be for a lot of people, including everybody on this call, right? So, and then when you think about diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, that's what that's talking about. It's not about the smartest person in the room going in the corner and building something amazing. This is about collaboration. This is about people. This is about including people in that conversation and coming up with something that accounts for many different perspectives. Things that you personally may never think about, someone else might think about. And all of that added together can equal something amazing. Because what's interesting is that I feel like, so I did a post on Twitter one time. Many of you probably saw it. It was around, like, do you have to be a super user or a fan of your product in order to be a good product manager? And why is your answer yes? That's what I said. And what was interesting is that a lot of people, and I found this a lot in my career anyway, some people just like to be contrary, just to be contrary. You'll find that a lot. There's always an opposing view, and there's always going to be somebody that's going to do that. But I was surprised because there was quite a few people that not only did they say no, but they said that it would be better if you were not, because it could create a bias. And I thought that's weird, because if you think about that, let's say you're a child counselor, like you're, excuse me, what would you call somebody that does that? Let me think. Somebody that counsels you on how to raise your children. I don't even know what you would call someone like that. they're teaching you how to raise your kids, but they've never had kids. They don't know what it's like to have children. They've never felt what it's like to see your child in pain. Okay. Or another illustration might be a fitness instructor who's never been in shape ever, but he's your trainer. He doesn't know what it's like to starve because you're trying to avoid the foods that you really love and the pain and discipline it takes. He's never felt that when it comes to dieting, but he's telling you that you just need to eat these things. To me, that's weird, right? To say that as a product manager, you don't need to be really into your product or experience. Now, what I categorize that, my wife actually said this, so I'm going to steal it from her. There's the difference between sympathy and empathy. It's very easy to sympathize, but to empathize, that's your pain in my heart. So yes, you have to be careful of bias. Of course, you have to understand that your experience is not everyone's experience. You always have to be aware of that. But this is about empathy. And it makes me wonder, is this why there's so many crappy products in the world? Because you got all these people that are trying to study and find the mathematics behind a successful product. Where's the empathy?
Oh, nice.
Can I eat it?
Oh, Ebony, you can't eat it. So, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like building great products takes empathy. It's just easier to be empathetic if you have used the product. It's easier to be empathetic while you're counseling someone on how to raise children if you have children of your own. Now, it's not a requirement, right? Like you don't have to be in shape in order to be a phenomenal motivator. You don't have to be. But if you've done it before, if you're 47 years old and you've got a six-pack and you know what it's like to eat good food and to resist, bad habits and to be disciplined and wake up at 6 a.m. and have a consistent workout schedule. And you did it because you don't have the body type that naturally has 1% body fat. But you've done it. And then now when you're telling someone, I know you can do this, it's a very, very different and empathetic type of conversation. And I believe that that's really important in product management. And I was really surprised that so many people actually didn't believe that. They just thought, anyone can build any product and it doesn't matter. And yeah, there's some truth to that, but how much better is it if you can really have deep customer empathy? Now, a lot of them had great points too, like some of the products you can't have experience with. Sure, I understand. But I still would argue that it's better. It's better if you can. All right. So that was kind of my thoughts for today. I have my presentation with LinkedIn on Tuesday. So I'm going to spend part of this weekend getting part of my proposal together. I'm going to take a look at the stuff that you guys shared with me. If you have any thoughts that you'd love to just shoot me over, I'm going to keep a look at the Slack channel that we have if you have any ideas there. But that's what I'm going to do. That's where my mind is. So, but I'd love to hear from you guys, hear how you guys are doing. I know we've had some challenges, some wins, some good things, and some struggles. But this is a journey. And sorry for giving some of you a heart attack saying that the accelerator is over. That's not what I meant at all. And after I read it again, it did say that, didn't it? I was like, this quarter and the accelerator is over. That's not what I meant at all. So sorry for that. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, how you doing? Support that you need. I'm really excited for the April town hall. I think we've got some really cool stuff coming, and we have some really cool ideas, but challenges for the next few weeks. I think you guys are really going to like it. Really cool stuff coming up around content creation, things that we want to do. A lot of spaces coming up. There's been a lot of great activity in the spaces. A lot of good connections have been happening. But yeah, anybody want to share like how they're doing, or always questions and comments, of course, anyone that needs help or support. This is kind of a good time to talk to the team.
Sure, I could go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, so hi everyone. Hope your week was good. All right, so in the earlier weeks of the accelerator, when I was still doing the coffee chats, someone suggested that I'm actually in a bootcamp at the moment. I'm at the full stack developer bootcamp. And I was actually waiting until I had my portfolio feeling complete and I felt fully prepared before I started to apply for roles. But I got the advice that, don't wait, start now, right? So I started applying to the roles that that stood out as, jobs that seemed perfect to me, right? I kept the ones that my dream jobs on a list. I haven't actually applied to those, but the ones that look, up there, I would have started applying. And I actually got 2 technical interviews this week. The first one, I bombed completely. I froze up. Yeah, you know how it goes, right? And the second, I walked away feeling like, yeah, this was going pretty good. And the thing about it, it's for a startup company, right? So they are looking for people who are willing to learn new technologies, new languages, etc. So they gave me this technical interview in a language that I didn't know. I had no prior experience with that language. And they actually gave me sufficient time to go research, check documentation, check video tutorials. So I did all of that in order to complete the technical assessment. And I walked away feeling, proud of myself, especially after 2 days prior, I had, completely failed an assessment. So that was my week. Yeah. So.
That's very cool. You know, what's interesting about that, and it kind of all goes back to the whole imposter syndrome conversation. People are so scared to fail. They want to get over prepared and they feel like if they prepare more, then they win. But that's not even it. Like half of it is you need to get the experience of failure. Go fail and not be afraid to fail. And even after you fail, try again, and try again. And understand that the interview process, I don't care what anybody tells you, this is an academic test. Okay. We all grew up going to different schools and doing this academic, ridiculous thing. Even now. So one of the things I forgot to mention, as much as I hate interviews, I have no choice. Even at LinkedIn, they were actually telling me this too. Like they couldn't, even though I'm talking to executives in the company, they can't just hire me because there's a consolidated, centralized hiring process that requires I go through the pipeline. So I'm going to have to prepare for interviews and I'm going to have to do all this. So I am telling you, one of the reasons I hate it is because it's purely an academic exercise. I'm going to read books. I'm going to take notes. I've got a ton of notes when I've had to prep in the past before. I'm going to read them. I'm going to think about my jobs, think about my roles. I'm going to write down what metrics did you try. I'm going to do all that. And I'm going to pass this stupid academic exercise. And then I'm going to forget it. But what's cool, one thing I am going to do though, is I'm going to write all this out and I'm going to share it with you guys. So if I, assuming that I don't fail, then we can commiserate about how I almost did something great and it didn't work. And you guys can tell me I can do it. But either way, I've got a ton of notes. Like many of you, I've done many, many interviews. I remember prepping like 8 hours in a row, like hardcore prep for my Twitter interview. And I got it. So I did all right, but I hated to. But either way, like you just got to do it. It's a ridiculous exercise, but the reality is everything you need is Googleable. every question that they could ever ask. There's books out there about cracking the PM interview. And there's so many books out there that will tell you 90% of the questions that they're going to ask. And this is why I say it's an academic exercise. Just go study. Go study, go practice, pass this ridiculous thing. And for me, like I'm hoping this is my last one. And I'm going to see if I can convince LinkedIn to change the industry. Like, what can they do? Since they are so integrated into the hiring funnel, they're where you start a lot of times. That's how recruiters find you. What can we do to change that? Because what was ironic is that, and I think I told some of you about this, I had like an ad hoc interview with somebody at LinkedIn. I didn't like it. I shut the interview down and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. And one of the VPs came back to me and said, totally understand. What else could we do to assess your fit for a role? And I have a very long-winded answer for that, but there's no quick way to do it. Aside from things like apprenticeship or just let me do the job, let me write a proposal for the actual job. They don't want to share details, right? Because you haven't got the job yet. You haven't signed the NDA. So, but it's a fair point. Okay, what can we do? And I'm like, okay, that's a fair challenge. So this is what I'll do. I will go through this ridiculous loop with you, but let me prepare because this is an academic thing. And then I'm going to try to change it. But yeah, practice. You got to keep doing it. Thank you for sharing that. Glad you broke through. Like, hopefully you're less intimidated in doing it again.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned imposter syndrome because I was actually dealing with that a lot, right? Because I'm actually transitioning from a different field into tech, right? I kind of I was a techie for the most part. I did computer science in school, but I didn't actually go to university, right? But so my learning so far has had a lot of breadth, right? Learning a bunch of new technologies. And one thing for me, I was always looking forward to being able to focus on one thing to get that confidence to say, you know what, I know about this. I know the ins and outs. I feel confident. And as I said, I've had a lot of breadth as I've been learning. And yeah, it was just reassuring to take that second interview, especially after the first, right? So that just gave me that boost of confidence.
That's good to hear. Yeah, it's interesting how much of that is so dependent on it's a experience by experience type situation. I felt like a superhero when I interviewed at Twitter, and I felt like an idiot when I interviewed at Facebook. And I don't think it's because one company has a higher bar than the other. They don't. They literally just steal from each other the whole time. You'll learn that. Like, a lot of companies just continue. This is the same people just going back and forth. So how could I like kill one bar and then get totally annihilated by another one? It's just the interview process is different, but the people are the same. There's time and chance in all of that. So just keep doing it. Keep trying it. It's a numbers game for sure. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, I'll be quick, but I'm just tired. I'm tired of like trying to prove myself. Like, I know I can do this job. Like, I've got over 22 years of experience collectively. And I just want that right opportunity for me, and like to be able to be in a company and stay there for a while and be able to make an impact, but then have growth ahead of me as well. And that's all I really want for myself at this point. And then just like have the balance for my family too. So I'm finally getting those like offers and opportunities, and I'm grateful. But it really comes down to the dynamics of like, I could study all night long. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not going to cram. Like, I've done enough interviews now where I'm like, okay, I'll study up on like this company and what's important to them. But at the end of the day, it's like, I either know how to, present myself or not. And it ends up being the dynamic between me and the interview that makes the difference. And sometimes that dynamic is there and sometimes it's not. And then I was like, debating today. I was like, do I interview better with men than I do with women? Like, which is kind of an interesting thought to me. But yeah, but I'm grateful for this community and the support that everyone's been giving. And I appreciate you all for being there for me. And I'm excited about the opportunities ahead. So that's all I've got to say today.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I think we all can definitely relate, which is another reason why the process should be different. Why does it feel like this? You know, the idea of sitting somewhere and just being judged by people that don't know you and start making assumptions about you off of every sentence on your resume or everything that you say, that just feels off. Like it starts off wrong. That's not how it should feel. And as you guys go through this, because I think what's really interesting, every time I've done this accelerator, there's always like a ton of people going through interviews, because I think it naturally obviously just happens when you put yourself out there. But start thinking about it as all of us kind of go through this, because I'm going to go through it right there with you. What can we change? Because I don't think it's an easy thing to fix. It's obviously not easy. Otherwise, somebody would have fixed it by now, hopefully. But anything can be changed. We can change it. We just have to figure out what would be a good idea. I think apprenticeship programs, even the take-home projects, I think are interesting ideas to handle some of the interview process. I think it's actually kind of cool. But I feel like, and actually I got some ideas I can share with you guys later, but I think there's a way to gamify your career growth so that you don't have to apply at all. Imagine if there was a leaderboard, top 100 PMs in the industry. And if you're on that board, like, do you think LeBron James has to do a tryout exercise when he changes teams? You think they have to check his jump shot? Shoot these 10 jump shots, then we'll see. No, I mean, he's got a rep, right? He's got a reputation. Get out of here, man. You're not going to just hire him or not, right? I think it should start to get like that. Imagine if there was a list that you could work really hard to get on. And then once you got on it, or you achieve some level of something and it's not about credentials. This is about something that validates your skill. So you don't have to interview anymore. Stop with that nonsense, this nonsense that I was almost offended at the Facebook interview. So I hear you, Aaron. I'm like, get out of here. Why are you asking me that? I know that's maybe it's a little arrogance in my voice, but man, I tell you, after a while, you get tired of it. Like, man, just give me a chance. And if you don't like me, then we'll have that conversation. But anyway, hang in there. Toby, what's going on with you, man?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Jay. Love the shirt. I just wanted to plus one everything Aaron said. Like, I'm tired. It's been a very busy couple of weeks. Came into this year thinking, man, I'm just going to aggressively pursue growth no matter what it takes. And, a lot of LinkedIn posts, a lot of meeting with people. And I've just noticed that it's begun to take its toll, which, sometimes can get very tiring. That said, I did have a question. Jay, from your experience, and I know a ton of people here are trying to break into product management. If there was a pathway to get into the space at your current company, maybe you can move to like a different, specialization and then get a promotion to product manager, or you got like an opportunity to move to, one of the FANG companies like Amazon and, do something different like program manager. Which do you think has more impact on your career and on getting into product management in the future?
So I don't think I heard the first part. So you said, are we talking role versus brand? Is that
exactly?
Okay.
Exactly.
I choose brand every day. That's just because. So if you talk to purists, now these are people that love their role too much. That's not what a product manager is. Let me tell you the definition of product management. Those kind of people, right? They're purists. They'll say there's no way. There's program management and product management are absolutely not even close to the same. That's what they'll tell you. Now, is there some truth in that? Maybe, but I would argue that people have skill sets that a lot of times are transferable to both. And both, you got to wrangle a lot of people together to make decisions. Both require execution. Both require people skills, thinking outside of the box. And if you want to be a really good program manager, you also think about product stuff. You care about your customer. It's not just about execution, right? So to me, I choose brand over role all day, because I'm also a firm believer that you can build a good reputation within that company and network your way to the role that you want. For me, I've done that 3 times. And at some point, the role doesn't matter, right? Like, this is not the first time. Like, what if the situation with LinkedIn works out, I'm basically writing my entire roadmap and job description and role and everything right now. And I feel like that you don't have to apply for a role. I think the role is so fudgeable. Like, there's so many roles that have so many similarities. It's just a title. But if you get into the right brand, a lot of these brands do have mechanisms to help you move around the company. And it's so much easier and faster to hire someone internally. Because think about it, before that role is ever posted, I've been planning and wanting to hire for this role for months. But if you know people internally, and people will make roles for you. They will be like, you know what, we really like Toby and we know he wants to be a product manager. Why don't we try him out? Even you can do partnerships where you're not even officially in the role, but you can just start doing stuff with their team and they have a taste of the type of person that you are, and then eventually make a role for you. That kind of stuff happens all the time, because you remember, anyone who creates a role or a position, that was a person that just made a decision. Every quarter or month or however, whatever your planning cycle is, there are people that are deciding where are we going to invest our money? What positions are we going to open? What positions are we going to move? When you start to know these people within these companies, you get to be a part of that equation. So for me, I choose brand over role most of the time. Now, there might be some scenarios where it's like, if you're choosing between like an EA, an executive assistant at Amazon versus a product manager at a startup, I would probably choose the product manager at a startup. So it's not always going to be true there, but I would say if it's pretty similar, brand wins. Simply because I've personally had no problems moving to an entirely different discipline and different role. When you have an established reputation in the company, you can move.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Really, really appreciate that perspective.
Yeah. And even long-term, right? Like, if you're an entrepreneur, or, because again, like, I think personally, my goal, and I believe most people's goal, maybe not most people, but a lot of people, should be financial independence. Do your own thing. Like, get to a place where you have enough money to take care of your life, and then you go do whatever it is you want to do. And that should be your goal. That's what I think. That's what I encourage people to do. If I go to whatever company, that's not my end goal. They are simply funding a portion of my life, and I'm going to do something else later, getting myself to a financially independent position and then going to do something else. So I think that's the goal. I think that's the way that you should think. So even when it comes, like, if you want to have fun and have a great experience in life, I wouldn't say go to a big tech company. Big tech companies are slow, right? There's a lot of rules. You're going to want to be super impactful, but you may not be able to be. Let's be real. You guys may not know this. I might be breaking a lot of bubbles right now. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. These big, gigantic companies move slow, and they may or may not care what you have to say. But here's the thing. What they do is that they unlock opportunities for you to network with amazing people. They pay incredibly well. The brand strength is so strong, you can start to get into conversations that you previously could not get into. That opens up so many opportunities and feeds your family plus some, that it can set you up for doing something, your own thing, whatever it is, later. And that's why I encourage people to go to tech, right? That's why. Because you can go from making 50,000, 60,000 to making $500,000 a year. And you'll learn a lot, and you'll meet so many great people. And then as you figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life for your career or not, hopefully you have some of the financial backing to do that, and then you go do it. That's why. Because think about if you ever wanted to start a startup, right, and do your thing, and you've worked for years with so many people within the big tech industry, you've worked with some really, really smart folks. Now you've got connections. You need a CTO for your startup. Maybe you've met some developers you could talk to. How else would you have met them? How else would you have known that they were really good? I think that it's a great place to meet great talent, great people, great connections, and while making really good money, so that as you're figuring out whatever you want to do with your life, your bills are paid, your family is doing well, and you get to learn in a very great, comfortable-ish environment. But if you're trying to have fun, depends on what your definition of fun is, I guess. That's just my 2 cents. Hey, Colleen.
Hello. So I wanted, I feel like this week has been a big week for me. I turned in the third round for an Instacart. I submitted the take-home challenge yesterday. So hopefully a couple business days from now, I'll know a little bit more. But I think one thing that I found myself even more excited about was I had a conversation with a startup earlier this week, and the startup found out about me by virtue of posting about a pain point that I had. So last week I posted about how I like listening to podcasts while I go for runs, but I didn't really have a mechanism in order to bookmark or record things that I could do while I was in motion. And that one post that was completely on a whim that I hadn't really thought about until I sat down to drink coffee, like blew up in a way that it's like still kind of reverberating in the LinkedIn universe. And so I had 4 podcast apps connect with me or want me to share about my feedback with them, one of which was this startup called Clever.fm. And I spoke with one of their co-founders and their community manager earlier this week. And the question that I thought about at the time when I was talking with him was like, what do you think I'm missing? Like, what is preventing you from hiring me right now to be able to go and do some of these product things for you? And he actually beat me to the punch, because he said, hey, it seems like you're interested and that you have a skill set for product. Like, how can we partner? Like, in what way can we do in what way can you like consult with us so that the insights that you brought to this 30-minute meeting are things that we can now hopefully shuffle into place. So that was, right after having that conversation was when the AMA was earlier this week. So I was like fumbling around trying to feel like, hey, how do I do this? Like, how do I submit a product proposal to this company that is doing something really cool? But yeah, all of that started by virtue of just posting and just being consistent with it and just talking about product, talking about a pain point, talking about potential solutions and what people have come up with. So so if things work out with Instacart, awesome. But if they don't, there's also this potential to move into a startup space and kind of build the plane as we're flying it, to move forward on that front. So still trying to flesh out what a product proposal would really look like and how to not bite off more than I can chew. But yeah, it's exciting just to see, just staying with it and the fruit that really comes from that. So it's been a good week.
That's really cool, Colleen. And it's so interesting, but it's the truth. Nobody is doing this, right? This is why, like, now is the time to do it, because most people don't. So there's just such a high likelihood that somebody's going to notice your post. Because I'll tell you another thing about LinkedIn. A lot of the content on LinkedIn is trash. It's literally just people celebrating their wins, and they don't tell you why. They're just like, I got this job. And it's like, great, good for you. But I don't know you that well. So why are you telling me good for you? High five. but I'm not going to come to LinkedIn simply to celebrate other people's wins. Right? Give me a reason to show up to LinkedIn. Share something with me. Tell me how you got that win. Tell me something to make this feed valuable. And this is what we are doing. We're adding value to their feed. We are giving them a reason to come to LinkedIn. And for all those people like you're talking about, Colleen, they've got products and they're struggling to figure it out. And you have an opinion. They care about your opinion. These people are obviously smart enough to realize that they should care about their customers. They do. You say something, they're like, oh, she's got some ideas. Because you'd be surprised. Like I've talked to many product leaders at LinkedIn, right? I've been mentioning it to you guys. And many, they'll ask me. Like one of them asked me, she was like, how do you manage your contacts? She's like, I know you talk about networking, you know, you talk to people all the time. She's like, how do you manage that in your inbox? And I said, that's a really good question because the inbox is horrible. I wish I had a lot of tools. Messages just disappear from LinkedIn. I swear I had more messages and like 6 months of messages will just be gone. Right? And why is she asking me that? Because she's trying to solve for this problem. She cares what I have to say. Right? Same thing. So if we continue to add value to the feed, the good news is there's not a lot of great content on LinkedIn. It's a huge opportunity for us to add value and be noticed and add great content. Start trends of good content, which started happening. Because even if you think the last few years at LinkedIn, the thread has actually, the feed has gotten better. And I think some of it may be triggered because of the pandemic. A lot of people were in their feelings a little bit more. And so they started sharing more on LinkedIn about the way they felt. Then more and more people started doing that. You started to hear stories more. That did not used to be LinkedIn like 3-4 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's telling their story on LinkedIn. Somebody started that. I don't know who it was, but people started sharing their authentic self and then it took off. Now, a lot of people are starting to post their story, which is helpful, right? Like those of us, we need to hear the story. Say, okay, now I know somebody that did it this way. This is what this person did. So easily by doing things like sharing product feedback, sharing your story, sharing things that you're learning, you could start kicking off trends and other people are going to see it. They're going to do what you're doing. And all of a sudden, everybody's feed is just a little bit better. And all of a sudden there's opportunities. How cool is that? Hey, Will, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. It's been a pretty long week, I would say. Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of just based off of observation, I think that when you apply for jobs in tech, like for me, when I apply for jobs as a developer, they gauge you on a variety of aspects, right? Like how well you can write JavaScript and how you have built an application using XYZ technologies and so on and so forth. There is something that's extremely tangible in terms of how you assess somebody's skills. I think one of the things that I see from a product perspective, being a product manager pursuing product roles, is that everybody has like this different variation of what a product manager is, right? Depending on where they worked, the industry that they worked in, the size of the business. Not everybody has the ability to work in big tech. They might have started off at a startup where they're, doing multiple things. Some of the roles that they've worked in probably, dabbled in program management or project management, and they're having a hard time deciphering what is what, but they're still trying to pursue maybe another role in this, in this field. And I think that sometimes, like when I jump on LinkedIn, for example, I saw there was a comment today from a product leader from Salesforce, trying to define the differentiation between program management and product management. However, it always kind of revolted back to, well, that's not what a product manager does. But I think that every single organization, depending on what you're trying to solve and what you're trying to do, is going to vary. So instead of looking at it just from a one-to-one, cross comparison analysis of saying, well, this is what we have on paper, why don't you look into the actual individual and see maybe some of the additional skills that they're looking to bring to the table? Maybe they've worked in a couple of different types of roles in tech that they can, drive value for your business. Like, if, for example, like I don't go, represent like my developer skills, but I can sit here and do development work, right? I want to focus on the product stuff. during these interviews. But at the same time, though, I think that when you dismiss somebody because they don't necessarily, match that prerequisite that you have on paper, that you're really kind of just, you're missing out on, I think, really good talent. So how do we solve for that, like in the industry that we're in?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I don't know the answer. I love the idea of apprenticeship programs, though. I will say that. I feel like more and more companies need to do that, because at least that's one way to kind of try before you buy, right? Like you can see the way a person works. There needs to be a lot more entry level roles available. And I think the way that I'm going to approach it is you need entry level people to help train your senior people how to be senior. If you're senior, you got all this knowledge. Can you share that knowledge? Are you making people around you better? But are you never given that opportunity because everybody around is just as senior as you and you guys are all in a room being senior? Like, do you know how to pass that on? Can you teach people? Can you bring people? And if there's nobody to teach and nobody is humble enough to be taught, that's a problem. And it's really expensive to hire everybody at senior. That can't be cost effective to a company at all, because all these people are not doing senior level work the whole time. I can promise you that. There's stuff that they're doing that entry level folks that are excited would love to do, but are not given the opportunity to do. So I know from my perspective, that's something that I really want to push on every company that I join is, do we have an apprenticeship program? So even people that I've met with in the past, like at Twitter and Peloton, I keep all of my contacts because I want to pull together common notes and thoughts around those processes and try to bring that into any company that I join. Because I think that's a big missing part in the industry too. We need more entry-level roles. Hey, Candace, how are things with you?
Things are good. I wanted to share what I consider a win. So I have been, setting up connections. And I think last week I sent out a connection to a VP at Microsoft, just randomly. And she actually wrote back and connected and asked if I wanted to talk to someone on her team about open roles. So I thought I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't even really expecting anything back. So that definitely, made me feel good. And so I did write back to her. I haven't heard back, but I do plan on following up. But, it's a connection that I've made. So I see it as a win regardless of what happens.
That is absolutely a win. Absolutely. And maybe it's just my take on the world, but I just tell you, like in my experience in business, it's all fudgeable. I swear, nothing. People make up these rules and processes, but none of that, man, you could wade through all that stuff. Like this is a people game. Get to know people. And you can invent the rules. You can write the rules. There's a lot of people out there that need the structure, and I understand that, but don't get distracted by the structure. It's just a mechanism to help us be more efficient, but it's not the law. The law is that they need to be profitable. And if they want to be profitable, they need the best people. And not just the best people, they need good people. They need good team players. Everybody on the team does not need to be Kobe Bryant. You might need a couple of those, but you need solid players too. And there's nothing wrong with being a solid player on a winning team. You can't have Russell Wilson without a good, offensive line. I don't know if you guys are mentioned to sports. Sometimes I wonder, I make all these analogies.
You didn't use the Pippen analogy. I'm shocked.
There you go. Yeah, we lost Russell Wilson. Man, what's up with that?
Like I said, don't talk about Russell.
I know. We don't like him right now. Stupid. Anyway, it's true. I would love to think that your tech career in a lot of ways is more like a football team versus a basketball team. In a basketball team, you can literally have, like Michael Jordan can literally win the game and score 60 of the points. He can win. You can't do that in football, Like, I don't care how good of a quarterback you have throwing the ball, if your receivers are not catching those balls, guess what? You lose. Barry Sanders was one of the best running backs in history, but if people don't block for him, Detroit was not going to win nothing. It did not matter how good of a runner he was. And I feel like tech teams, tech companies are more like football. You can have the best design in the world, but if the engineering is not good, doesn't matter. Quality is bad. If the product idea is horrible, but the execution of the engineering is amazing, it's still a failure. You know, all the team players need to do their job well to create a great product. That's just the way it is. You can't have one without the other. It's a team sport. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, everybody. It's been a while since I shared on the AMA, but today just kind of felt right. Candace, super excited for your conversations with Microsoft. There are going to be more of those with all of the other companies. It's definitely coming your way. I feel like I kind of went through like a similar journey. I probably started I got connected with this like group product manager at Microsoft back in February, scheduled a chat in March. We spent like 25 minutes out of the 30 minutes talking about very philosophical aspect of product management, talked about gravity, natural forces, like human behavior, like human psychology, like river running down a mountain, like widening rivers. And then did not talk about Microsoft, did not talk about product roles. It was just like a really, really good connection. It's like you just meet someone who just thinks like you, and there is no like, oh, like he is so much more senior, has so much more experience. Like, it was a very, very enjoyable conversation, which had, again, I think earlier this week, talked a lot about like finding a career or just consistently looking for that thing that you're naturally drawn towards, and then just find joy in what you do. And like the whole concept of a lot of people treat work as work, but if you keep looking for that thing, and it doesn't have to be like the same thing throughout your life, because that thing's going to change, like what you want, what you're optimizing for, like what you love, what you're good at is going to change throughout life. And if you just keep looking for and keeping your eyes and ears open and go towards that thing, you're going to have a very happy life that is not just defined by title and how much money you make. And obviously all of those things are great because it gives you freedom, but you get to find like so much joy. And if you just focus on self-discovery and what you're naturally passionate about and good at, and really understand your superpowers. Again, it was another very like philosophical, like life views, like type of conversation. And like we connected very deeply on like very personal levels. And we left like 5 minutes at the end of the call to talk about like with his team. And like I'm starting to find myself having a lot more of those conversations, just like really, really loving the relationship building. It's like maybe out of every 10 or 15 people, you meet someone that as if you've been friends for a long time. And you just have that instant connection. And it's like, it's a relationship I never thought like I would just like find like in this virtual world. But like the more people you connect with, you're like, wow, like this is so fun. Like you feel so alive when you have that natural human connection. And when you go from there to like a job, like it's like so natural. Like the group product manager is like, oh, we actually, like I told him, so this is a Microsoft guy. I told him, hey, I looked at the roles. There are only like 3 roles like with your group. Like I'm looking at this like one role that has like AI, and he is like, don't trust anything that's like on our career site right now with my group. He's like, our like latest hiring like just completed, like the last person starting on the 21st. But we're gonna open up a bunch of IC roles, like senior IC roles in 2 months. If you're still looking, let's already set up a chat in May just to see what's good for you, and then let's go from there. And it's like those kind of conversations, it's like you really build that relationship first. And like, it's just so genuine. And obviously you're not going to build that kind of relationship with everybody you meet, because I mean, there are different people out there, and you just got to find the people that you actually vibe with. And you're going to find them. Like the more people you talk to, you're going to find them. And you're going to share life stories, like how they got to where they are, how they found the joy through work in their career. And then, they're going to take you to places. And like, I feel like, even if, let's say, I'm actually interviewing with a fintech startup right now, the conversation went really well. And I feel like there's a possibility I may want to go work for them. Because I know like they probably will hire fast, and I'm dying. I'm at work and I just need something else. And it's a really good team. It's a very high growth product and has a lot of potential. So maybe, I probably will still apply to Microsoft role like come May. Maybe I get a job, maybe I don't get a job, but whatever happens, like the connection I built with this group product manager at Microsoft, like is forever. Like we already have that connection. And we don't just talk about product. We talked about people management. We talked about how do you foster creativity in a big organization like Microsoft, how painful it is, and how he had to be like so careful to like be both the supporter of his team's product, but also the biggest critic. And then how to like carefully help people get out of their comfort zone to be creative, very different from in a startup. And we talked about like our career goals and everything. And I'm starting to have a lot more of those conversations just like with people at Microsoft. I'm starting to have them with Meta, like Jay, about this. When I met with Kirk, like the first conversation we talked for 2.5 hours. Like it was crazy. So like for real, like I think like the whole like relationship building and just finding humans to connect with that like you just have so much joy from, like this whole process is so much more fun than job search. Like it is like so much more enjoyable. It's so much more natural because you're just like yourself and you don't just talk about the job or like the profession, and you start talking about what you care about as a person, like what you want from a job, like what are your like intrinsic like motivations, and like even like your background, like maybe as immigrants or as people who come from different backgrounds, like your take on creativity, like, and then in one of the conversations I talked to someone from Meta, which is Kirk, we talked about how we realized product management is not the end goal of our life. Like it just isn't, right? Like the end goal is we get to enjoy life, solving some really interesting problems that we care about, that we are like energized about. And it doesn't have to be the same problem like all the time. It can be like different problems throughout your life, and finding that balance between that and, making a living that is comfortable, that like, obviously we have different priorities as individual humans, but like, it's like finding ways to enjoy your life from different angles, and like finding this next career and becoming a certain profession is not the end goal. Like we have to keep the bigger picture in mind, So obviously this may be a season where you do a career transition into one role, but that's not going to satisfy you. Like that will never, and everything's going to change in a year or 2 years, and you're going to find new passions, and you got to go towards those things because like you have to honor your life enough to do that for yourself. And so those are some of like my recent learnings. And I just felt like I've never been more alive than how I feel now. And it's very powerful. Like I feel like I no longer even worry about finding the job that I'm gonna love, because I know I will. Like it's like not a question if I keep doing this and having this kind of mindset. And so I feel really hopeful. I feel like I'm succeeding every day because I'm discovering about myself. And like, I don't know, I recently like realized I actually really wanted to be an entrepreneur. So like, I think sometime down the line, I'm going to start doing that. I had like a podcast idea. Like there are so many things you can do in parallel to feel alive and to discover about yourself and what you can do and to add value, and at the same time meeting your goals. So that's it. Signing off.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. That was all great. I'm really happy to hear all of that. And it's funny, the more I'm in tech, the more I realize, and you guys will hear me say it 1,000 times, that this is about people. You're rarely going to hear me talk about frameworks, methodologies. And it's not because those things aren't important. But if I stack rank what's most important, it's the relationship building and connection. Because anybody can learn a framework. I can Google an article and it'll tell you a framework. Everybody's worried about PRDs. You just need a template. Just get one, fill it out. We don't need to like agonize over what do we put on the template. I don't think that's a worthy conversation. I think that the conversation is how valuable is it to build relationships? It's everything. It only takes one conversation because people have this misguided impression that the smartest get the job. You guys probably saw in my post, I posted something yesterday, I think was talking about community challenge. Prove that you are a team player. Prove that you can care about other people. That's what I want the community to do. Prove that you are a team player. That's how you're going to win, not by being the only all-star in the room. That's not, I mean, that's not I don't think that's a growth strategy. But it's the one that most people choose because we're taught to choose that. Be the smartest in the room. That's how you win. And if you're not, be quiet, which is why most people have imposter syndrome and just be quiet because we don't want to be the dumbest person in the room. We're trying to avoid the bottom of the list. But you know, what's interesting, so I've done this accelerator several times. What I love is that to see who shows up consistently, because you'll notice a pattern. Most of you are going to do fantastic. And a lot of the people that I will connect many of you with, especially the challenge winners, did fantastic. Kirk was in the last accelerator. He's at Meta. Shaq was in the last accelerator. He's at Apple. You see patterns of people. And if you watch their behavior, they're consistent, they're excited, and they really do want to aggressively pursue growth. And all you have to do with people like that is give them an opportunity and they will go do it. So I just want to say that I appreciate all of you. You show up consistently because I tell you, like, this happens every time. And it's funny because you got some people that'll drop out of the program and say, oh, you know, I was hoping I was going to get a job in 2 weeks. I'm like, well, that's not the name of the game, right? But every time there's a subset of people, you see people start to whittle off. But then you get that core group. They're the ones that are going to succeed. And that's all of you. You guys show up every time. And what's exciting about, especially with the challenge stuff and all that is just, all it is some structure to give you something to focus on, something to try new. That's something a little bit different. But the reality is all of you were capable and qualified when you came in. All of you are capable and qualified, can double, triple your comp, can do whatever you want to do. But for whatever reason, a lot of us get lost in that imposter syndrome. We forget that we're capable. But by your consistency, you're going to see results. That is how it works. Candace, did you have a thought?
I have a question. I forgot to ask this. So I have been at my job now for about 4 months or so. When should I tell my manager that I'm interested in product management? Because I was listening to your, I wasn't able to attend live, but I listened to part of your recording with, I think, Nico. And you both talked about making sure that you prove yourself in your current position. And unfortunately, like in my current position, I'm sort of in limbo. Like I'm supposed to be working on a course. Like I'm not doing what I was hired to do. So I'm helping someone else out because of, approval process, things are still in the pipeline. They haven't approved certain courses, so I don't have one of my own to work on. So I also feel like I haven't created or done, I feel like I haven't had any impact. And so I'm just feeling like, when should I express this? There is opportunity, I think, internally to move if I wanted to. But I mean, there are opportunities everywhere, as we have talked about. So
I would say You want to establish a good reputation. The reason that matters is because when you want to transition and move, you're more likely to get support because even your manager would prefer you to stay in the company versus leave, even if it's in a different role. That's kind of the goal. Now, how open you are with your manager about that depends on your manager. Because not every manager actually gives a crap about your career. And so you got to have to assess that a little bit. Because to be honest, there's a lot of selfish managers out there that don't care, that literally are just like, do my job. What do you mean you want to leave my team, right? So you have to kind of pay attention to who your manager is. But what you're trying to do is establish a good reputation, not only within your team, but also externally outside of your team. So one thing I would suggest is, especially if you've got time, do product manager stuff in your role. You don't have to call yourself a product manager to care about customers, to do research on customers, to start suggesting things and to start thinking and inventing and coming up with ideas, having conversations, pulling that stuff together, writing it up, sharing that document. You can do that stuff now because eventually people will understand that Candace is good with talking with people, doing user research, coming up with good ideas, sharing those ideas, combining other people's ideas with her ideas. Guess what that is? Could Candace be a good product manager? She's been doing it. That's what she does. It's not just that you're writing instructional content. You are doing all of those things that good collaboration focused leaders do. So as a part of your job, do those things, right? That is product management. Product management is not about coming up with a great idea on your own in a corner and executing it. That's not what that is. It's about customer empathy. Can you bring people along on the journey? Can you come up with these ideas? But these ideas come from and stem from customer conversations and people and collaboration. Do that stuff, document it, write it out so people can collaborate. Depends on the culture of your company too, because not every culture does that really well or how they communicate. Can you stir up good conversations and push for new ideas and different things based on the research, feedback, and conversations that you're having? You can drive change. And by doing that, even in your current role with your current responsibilities, you'll start to gain a reputation. And eventually you should get a sense of, do people think you're doing well? You kind of get an idea of, are you respected? When you come into a room, when you come into a meeting, do you feel like people want to hear from you because they've seen your work, they respect your work? You can start to pick up on signals that, you know what, you're appreciated here. Especially when you see those signals, that's a great time to start talking about growth. You don't have to talk about it in terms of, I want to be a product manager. Now, if you have that relationship with your boss, great. But if you don't, talk about it in terms of growth. Because again, the role you change or the role you have or you don't have, don't be tied to the title. It's just it's just a title. We say product management now, but let's be real. Product management is huge. The industry may take that title and split it apart. That stuff happens all the time, or give it a new name. It doesn't matter, right? Like we're trying to solve problems with collaboration and customer feedback, and all that is going to remain the same. The titles are going to change. So always talk in terms of growth too. Because imagine, let's say they offer you a program management job that paid really well, that allowed you to do very similar work, but it was a different title. But you already told them you wanted to be a product manager, and they don't realize that it doesn't matter. And they're like, oh, well, she won't want this. That's not true. You might have loved that. So that's why, like for me, I think there's a little bit of a personally, again, this is just me, of pigeonholing yourself into this is what I am. I only talk in terms of product management because that's what everybody says. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll take the title, but I've had every title. That's why I always talk, you bubble at higher level. So we're talking about skill sets here. What are your skills? Those skills can translate to many roles. But that would be my advice. Like, do the work of a product manager, build a good reputation. At some point, you should start to feel like people respect your opinion when you come into meetings and when you're sharing and collaborating. And then depending on your relationship with your manager, if you feel comfortable enough, talk in terms of growth. And if it feels like you can have an honest conversation with that person, you can be specific and say you want to be a product manager, but be flexible when you say that, because you don't want people to put you in a box or to think that Candace no longer likes her job. And maybe that's true, but that's none of their business. You you need to grow.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, one, I love that I have a place to ask this question, because in the past it would just be floating in my head, like, I don't know what to do, and perhaps maybe make the wrong decision. But, like you said, in Accelerator, I've been networking internally, and I actually was talking with a product marketing manager. I had a coffee chat with her, and she was telling me that she was doing like interviews, I think, user interviews. So I think that might be a way for me to get in and offer some help. And also bring my manager in and say, hey, I chatted, with this person, and I have some time. I would love to help them out. They needed some extra help, because it was something that she said she wasn't even supposed to be doing. She was trying to help them out. So I think that might be a good way. So thank you. Thank you for that.
If I may add here, because I've had multiple of those conversations with people at my company this year, I usually go in and just say, like, I wanted to tell you this because I value your support to me as a friend and mentor, because that's what I see you as first before you're my boss. And I think like once you say that, they just can't be mean to you. Like they have to be supportive to you. And I think like probably carefully choose who you actually share that with too. Like if you don't feel emotionally safe with that person, don't go there. Like I think like if you've worked with them for a while, you would know what kind of person they are. So maybe like start with the folks that you feel more emotionally safe, that you can vouch for their character first, and then go to have those conversations first. And if you still do have to tell other people at work who are, not those kind of people, then keep those conversations up later, because then you have already had some practices and you know what to expect. And you just probably by then you wouldn't even care about what this other person thinks anymore, because you already had those more supportive conversations.
Yeah. And it's the truth too. Like be mindful of like egocentric people that think too much of themselves. Those are the ones you got to be careful around, because I would never, ever have an issue with an employee telling me that they want to do something different, because, but my mindset towards work is different. Why am I going to take it personal? You want to go do something different? Why? That's not a hit on me. And if it is, that's my problem to solve. What did I do as a manager that makes you not want to be here? That's how I would take it. But at the same time, I think everybody should pursue growth. If there's something you'd rather do, right? But not everybody thinks like that. Some people are like, I need to hit this target so that I get a promotion. This is why I don't like promotion talk. When people are like, Jay, how do I get a promotion? I think that's dangerous thinking. Do good work. And if you're in a good culture, they will promote you. And if they're not, or you have to jump through hoops to be promoted, to me, that's a bad sign. You do not want to be a part of a company that makes you jump through hoops because somebody set up a process and that's how you get promoted. That kind of thinking, this is about results, right? So be mindful of people that are a little egocentric, that think too much of themselves. Like Sayer said, like if you feel psychologically safe with them, yes, please. But if you don't, then I wouldn't tell them that, honestly. And that's why I say you just gauge your comfort level. But pursue growth. Go do the work, do the job that you want to do. Try to like make that a part of your role. Do it. Right. And as long as you're delivering on whatever it is your day job is, they should be fine. If you're doing extra stuff because you have an interest in research or other things, nobody's going to, most of the time, they're going to be fine as long as you're getting your results.
Just don't randomly post on director's LinkedIn post and find out your company's watching you. So, yeah. And it's too bad, right? Like people shouldn't be that way. They really shouldn't. That's ridiculous. But the reality is some managers are that way. So, and again, like what I was saying earlier on the call, this is a business. And if some of these ridiculous managers who should not be people managers, but they may be like, well, so-and-so is going to leave, then I'm not going to invest in them at all. I'm going to go does that kind of stuff happen? Absolutely it does. So you have to be careful. This is about company culture too, right? These companies are looking out for themselves and that's just the nature of the game. So, but if you feel safe, of course, but if not, to me, I'm just like, you build your network, your connections, your options, your choices, you continue to do good work, build in public if you can,
you help people publicly, you help people throughout the company, you build good reputation, you don't have to worry. Because if your current boss doesn't like you, someone in the company that has seen your good work will snatch you up. They absolutely will. If you want to stay at the company, because you don't even have to do that either. All right. So Toby, I think you're going to be our last one because I think we're over by a little bit now, but I appreciate you folks kind of hanging on there. Toby, did you have a final thought or question?
Yeah, I actually wanted to chime in on, what Candice mentioned, because, I'm also in the same boat. I've been, networking aggressively internally, trying to get into product. And what's funny is I never brought up the conversation with my manager, but I had spoken to like, God knows how many like product managers, how many directors we had. And I built such great relationships with them. Like it was so good that I started attending stand-ups and my manager didn't know. The way I thought about it was, hey, as long as I'm killing it in my job, any other thing I do like is up to me. And I only recently told him about it because a role opened up based on the relationships I had built. So I guess what I'm saying is like, just try to figure out what the culture is. If you don't need to tell them, don't tell them, but go do what you have to do. And then you can tell them when you need to. That's the way I look at it.
For sure. A lot of companies, because there's a lot of these, and Brenda brought this up too, there's a lot of managers out there that shouldn't be people managers, right? They allow you to apply for jobs and not tell your boss all the time. Salesforce has this thing where they'll do these little career fairs. And it's always this weird little awkward thing because what happens is it's internal people soliciting their roles to other internal people. So everybody goes into the lunchroom trying to poach from each other. And so everybody's just kind of like casually, oh, I'm just looking because, your team is in there too. Your boss is in there too. And everybody's just, oh yeah, I'm just curious what the teams are doing. No, they are actively poaching from each other. But there are rules in Salesforce. You don't have to tell your boss nothing. Go to the interview, see if this new team wants you, then talk to your boss. After they say, and then you can tell them you're leaving, right? Because companies know it. Microsoft's like that too. I'm pretty sure I remember you didn't have to tell your boss, like because I transferred internally, and I didn't have to tell my boss until I practically got the role. Then it's like okay, let's talk about transition. Now, why do they do that? Because even these companies know that there are managers out there that should not be managers that will try to sabotage your opportunities. Don't let them. And so they create mechanisms because they want you here. The company wants good talent to stay. So if another team is interested in you, then you should have the right to stay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for staying for an extra half an hour. I tell you, every time I do this, the accelerator stuff, I feel like, you're like sifting for gold, right? Like there's a ton of people that are like, yeah, I want to accelerate. But then after the weeks go by, you're sifting through and there's only that the real people that really want it. They're the ones that are here. So I'm really excited to see all of you. I love how consistent everybody's been. I love hearing about the wins. If you haven't had a win yet, be patient. I can tell you people that in the last accelerator, some of it took a little time. There were people that had wins immediately. And there were other people that took around for a while. Like a lot of you guys know Beth. So Beth runs a book club. She was diligent and she was trying hard for a long time, but she wasn't landing the job. But she finally did. She kept consistent. She kept being a community leader and she finally did land that role. And she's now and has been in great companies. And there's other people, same thing, right? Everybody's timing is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's circumstance is different. There's a lot of factors in there, and it's not just about qualifications. There's so many factors. Time and chance affect everybody. So you got to factor that in. But I still am a firm believer if you stay consistent, this is how the game is played. This is how success is made. You have to be consistent. You can't give up because that's the toughest part is the consistency. Everybody can be a rock star for a week. But it's just like fitness, you can have a really good fitness week, but you're not going to sustain good peak physical fitness without consistency. Even if it's small, it's better. than nothing. But thank you, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everybody has a good weekend. If you need anything, I mean, let me know what I can do. I think we've got some really cool stuff coming for the next couple of weeks, and the challenges and stuff that we're going to do. It's going to give some opportunity for some collaboration with the cohorts that I think is going to be a lot of fun. I think the April town hall is going to be very cool. I have a couple of great speakers that are going to be there. We got a lot of things that are coming, and hopefully if things pan out with LinkedIn, we'll have a lot more resources to kind of even give more of us more opportunities, more exposure. To me, it's funny. I was talking to the internal team earlier. We're talking about what is MetroMesh and the Accelerator going to look like if there's a collaboration with LinkedIn? And I said, well, my hope is, and actually the only way it would ever happen, is that our resources behind what we can do is going to 20x, right? 100x, 1000x. Because can you imagine having LinkedIn resources and connections and being able to do this? The types of connections and relationships that we could help facilitate across the entire global workforce, people that you could meet, connections that you could make, would be phenomenal. So that's my goal. My goal is to not only make this big and global, but to really, really start to help to change the way people think. This is about community. It's about people. But anyways, really glad to see everybody here. Everybody seems to be in a decent mood. I understand Aaron was tired. We're all tired. I get that. But let's try to stay consistent. And if you need time off, absolutely take some time off for sure. Don't feel like, if you're having a bad week, you're having a bad day, of course, take it off. A lot of times that rest can give you the energy to come back, but just make sure you come back. It's a marathon for sure. All right. It's good to see everybody. We'll see everybody next week. See you guys on Slack.